So I want to welcome Natalie Levy. Levy?
Yes, Levy.
Not Levy.
Levy.
Can I convince you to go with HaLevi? No. We are related
You can
somewhat.
HaLevi, but it's Levy.
Okay, Natalie Levy. To the 13-minute podcast. So the 13-minute podcast is not 13 minutes. Sometimes people are like, wait, we're only talking for 13 minutes. We'll talk for as long as the spirit moves us. But it's based on a tragic statistic that you may know. Every 13 minutes in America, a man chooses to die by suicide. And the subtitle of this podcast is Why Every Man Needs a Why. 80% of suicides are men. My father killed himself, and I set out on a mission, and that is to push the clock back by 1 minute. And Natalie, if we can do that and push back by 1 minute, that means 2,888 men will choose to live this year. And that's 2,888 worlds and wives and families and so on and so forth. And so my thesis is that a man kills himself because he's lost his why, his purpose. A man who has a why has a way. And that's why I set out to do this podcast. And it's not only with men, obviously. I'm in front of an accomplished woman. It's to get people who care about men to help them find their why and to help them find their way. And so when I was introduced to you indirectly by the work that you do, I thought, you know what? This is a woman who knows her why, and she's dealing in topics that men, I think, oftentimes kill themselves over: money, finances. And let's get into it. Let's have a conversation to help save men's lives. So thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me and for doing the work you do.
Thank you. So you are an incredibly accomplished woman. I'm not going to sit here and read your resume, but maybe start with what you're currently doing. I know you're a founding partner of She's Independent Investments. I get that right?
Yes.
And you wrote a book, which I can't wait to dig into. Cash is Queen. I love it. A conscious journey into angel investing. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit about that work that you do.
Yeah. So I'm an engineer mathematician who ultimately made her way to Wall Street. And I would say there was a lot of adversity, a lot of misogyny, a lot of, pushback. She can't. And I think just the way that I was born into this world and how I've navigated it, I've really grown through tough things, right? Like I've really, really grown through it. And it's probably in our DNA, right? Our lineage of being Jews. But I ultimately, ran away from finance because I did not like the way Wall Street, the way private equity was treating me, culture, just the values. I mean, all these things. It wasn't a place of belonging. It wasn't a place where I could be my best self. And then ultimately out here in Colorado, ended up circling back into investing via angel investing, which I already had been doing for a couple of decades, because women, folks in my ecosystem, were so impressed with my track record and really wanted to learn and transform and launch as angels. And for me, because as you noted, and we can get into it, I have a really deep why. It's not just my portfolio. I care about, what are we doing in this world? How are we showing up? What are we doing in community? How are we supporting with celebrating launching others? And a big part of that also, at least in my world, has been recognizing a lot of women haven't had access to private investing, which really shapes our lives. And so, yeah, today I own and operate, and I'm really excited to invest in a way that's very mission driven, to allocate to these private deals, angel investing, with a tremendous group. And many women, but all are welcome, love men to be a part of the equation. I also invest in men. And just to be really open, transparent, and, create a real space for both belonging, access, and transformation.
You're an eclectic woman because as you came into the studio, we're talking about your other passions, which are far from finance.
Yes.
And we can get into those. But I love people who are almost kind of paradoxical or can hold the tensions of opposites.
Yeah.
And clearly you do that operating here out of Boulder and all that Boulder has to offer, and still representing, a Wall Street investment strategy. So it's amazing. Yeah, there's so many different areas to talk about, but as I mentioned to you and I talk about in the book, my father killed himself 20 years ago. And although he said in a letter, his suicide note was that he wanted to cross over. My sister's a well-known psychic medium, and he was kind of dabbling in that world. And he wanted to assist her on the other side, was what his suicide letter stated. I don't even think I've ever said that publicly, but it's true. However, that was very beautiful in some ways, except for the fact that he had a mountain of debt,
Mm.
right? And although I've done many funerals, I was a rabbi back in the day, and there's not a common thread through all suicides of the men that I buried, almost always men. But I think finance was certainly a through line. I'm sure that's not surprising to you.
Not surprising. And I also want to share, and I'm very open about this. I think it's really important from both the collective mental health and what people are dealing with, and recognizing, what is our state and how do we invest in our wellness. We've lost now 3 people, close relatives in my family, to suicide. My mom was 2019. My 17-year-old cousin Z, who's amazing. He was 17 at the time, and that was in 2020. And then my mom's cousin, 5 years before my mom. And I will say that for the women, I believe financial pressure was a part of them not having a footing on how to navigate this reality, this physical world as women, out of marriage, out of divorce. It was, how do they move in the world? And they were fine financially, but they didn't have agency and they didn't have confidence. And yes, there was mental illness and these other pieces to it, but I am a firm believer that financial illiteracy was a part of the stress that ultimately resulted in suicide.
Yeah, there's so many factors, not the least of which is, material wealth is just representative of all material stuff, and feeling a sense of security.
Yeah.
Right. And yes, I have no doubt, I don't have data, it doesn't stop me from talking about it, that finance is a through line through so many suicides, men and women.
Yeah.
And, when I talk about men's suicide, that's women attempted actually more than men.
Yeah, I know.
They just
The success rate is lower.
Yes, success.
Yeah,
right?
well.
But it's
right,
true. That's what they
right.
call it. And that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is what drives men or women or human beings to take their lives is part, in no small measure, due to that sense of insecurity in a world where, finance and materialism is a necessity.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I've spent a lot of time with money and thinking about money. And yes, I started my career young on Wall Street, where I've never had to budget and I've always been fine financially. And everyone has money trauma. Everyone has financial trauma. And so whether you're inheriting money, whether you can't figure out money, I mean, there's so much work and there's so much to unpack around it. And even the mindset we have, right? The scarcity or the way that we show up with it. It can absolutely be a stressor. I think that language or the phrasing of, finances and that being kind of synonymous with security, a lot of people feel that way. And the more I think that we evolve, the more time we spend, unpacking and thinking about something, we can realize so many of us are fine financially, right? Because what do you really need? Unless you're like reaching for, hey, I need a private boat and a private plane and, all these crazy things. And it's like just this, I don't know, Western world, maybe this conditioning of like more. And so when we sit with it and we unpack it, I do think there's a lot to recognize and realize, which allows us to allocate, or let's say flow our money more consciously and in ways that better serve us, versus just being stuck in that, what is security? Because by the way, how many finance people, they just have money in the bank sitting there, right? Or in investments, but is it really serving them? The way I invest, the way I spend money, it's like flowing to things that I care about. And so that's a complete change and shift, so that it's not just like accreting or getting more. It's, how do I want this to flow? And that to me serves me much better.
I love this. So I'm so passionate about it. I actually wrote about it in my book. I call it the decimal chase. The guys, I work exclusively now with men. And so often they're just chasing one more decimal.
Yeah.
And they convince themselves, or digit, just one more comma is going to be, that's
it. How everyone lives.
And it's always this elusive somewhere out there, and they never get there. And to really undo that, I don't know if it's cultural, I don't know if it's genetic, whatever it is, to undo the wiring, the belief system is really hard.
And I want to bring up the men versus women, or not versus, but this idea, because societally we do have these projections or these expectations. I'm an interesting woman in that I've always been financially independent. And that was something really important for me. I wanted to be able to make my own decisions, have my own agency, buy what I wanted. But we have this expectation, or maybe it's been a thing that maybe we're moving from, but it was this idea that like the man will, provide. And so I think the pressure that men feel, from my experience and what I've seen in the world, with dating, relationships, marriage, whatever you want to name it, is often that financial pressure does sit with the man. And I have so many thoughts, but I'll just name that because, again, when we talk about pressure, security, and what happens, and also, potentially suicide or mental illness is something that can play in too. I do think that there are different stressors that will hit the genders maybe differently based on that conditioning.
Love the opportunity to have just kind of open, honest dialogue and talk about these things. Because oftentimes in this new world we live in, right, there's sort of like off limit topics and we have to kind of color inside the lines. And I love to just explore and kind of weave, and I can tell you do too.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So did you grow up in a home? Well, tell me about sort of the financial kind of vibe in the home you grew up in.
Great question. So it was me and my sister. I'll say I was the son, right? Like from a young age, it was like we were upper middle class, but middle class really. But there weren't things that I guess we wanted that we weren't getting. Like we had what we needed. My parents were scientists, and it was this kind of, experience of we were resourced. We were, I was, of course, taking the piano lessons and ballet and, doing all these things, art, whatever you call it. They were allowing me to kind of flourish, blossom, try things, be a nerd. And I would say there was this financial literacy or backbone that my father was kind of, investing with me in through dialogue and maybe through my interests. And from the youngest of ages, I remember I liked money, and I'll just say that, right? So I would be starting, businesses in the home, like a business. Hey, I can make eggs 12 ways, give me $1 to make it. Like silly things like that. Or, hey, Dad, I'll type these papers for you. I'm a faster typist, like pay me something. So I always kind of was saving money or, asking them to match it if I put it in the bank. Like I always had this kind of financial acumen. And even at a young age, when I was working at one of my dad's companies, I was like already putting money into my Roth for retirement, and I didn't need money. So I don't know, like out of the womb. And then in my young adult years, like I was investing in retirement, right?
Which is unusual for a young person.
Yeah.
I would imagine it's even more unusual for a young woman.
Yes, generationally, definitely. And I'm 41, so that was, a bit ago, but I think it's still, even recently has still been a little bit of that. If you're they say this, and this is something that there's research on. If you're a young girl, you're taught, save for groceries, money is this kind of lake, you want to protect it. And with men, it's like, go invest and make more. And so there's just different mentality of how the genders were kind of raised. And I don't know if that's changing now. I wouldn't be surprised if it is. And there's more like gender fluidity out there. But I've always been a bit of an outlier there. And even showing up in these advanced math classes, showing up on Wall Street, on Wall Street, I was like, yeah, I want to be a derivatives trader. And they're like, you're going to be a salesperson. So like, I was always kind of fighting the fight of like what I wanted versus what I was told.
So I was just on a podcast yesterday, and I talk a lot about, and I want to get into more of what's your why?
Yeah.
This is Viktor Frankl, not mine, but
yeah,
those who have a why can bear almost any how. And again, back to the sort of the theme of the show. Anyways, I asked the host, it was his show, what's his why? And he said, money and power. And I said, that sounds more like a how. Like why is that's a means.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I think it has to be a means. Otherwise it's just money and power is the end goal. To do what? Right? I'm sure you kind of come up against this all the time.
Yeah. People think money is like an arrival or, a thing that's going to make them happy. And it's not. Emphatically, it's not. You could dig in and ask all the questions, dig through the layers. Maybe it's about legacy. Maybe it's providing something for your children that you didn't have. Maybe it's trying to make yourself feel better because of how you were raised. I mean, there's a million reasons that people could say money. I don't think it's ever money. And by the way, I think it's all energy, right? Money is energy. I am money. I am energy, right? Like,
that's why it's called currency.
Yes. Yeah. And so for me, like I love the topic of why. And I think that if we're gonna, bring up the metaphor of like the onion, right? Like we can peel back the layers. We can learn so much about ourselves. I think every time we go through something difficult, we learn more about ourselves. And as deep as we go, there's like more. And so as deeply as you can meet yourself, like I think it's this like infinite depth. And I feel like I have developed so much depth and capacity and understanding of like, call it my soul or coming back to myself or my why, because of my life experiences, which include suicide losses, include adversity, include misogyny, include she can't, she can't, she can't. And I also think I'm just going to bring this up, which is kind of nuts maybe, but we're in Boulder, so it's not astrology. The more I learn about, the cosmos and how we came into this world, when you look at, it's called gene keys. So it's like, not just I'm a Virgo, but like, where were you born? What time, where in the world? And the celestial objects or beings, like it's crazy. For me, the more I learn about myself and my work, I'm like honoring women. I'm honoring women in my lineage. I'm honoring women who have lost or didn't have voices, who've been abused. There's this like liberation that I bring to my work. So yes, I'm investing, but that doesn't define me. The way I show up with a voice and advocating or, saying, hey, like something needs to change, or, I care about the integrity. I mean, these are things where I have a voice. And it feels like such a deep why and such a powerful why. And I really love it.
God, it's such a refreshing conversation versus, manosphere dude yesterday. It's money and power. I'm like, that's it. That's all I get. Like, that's not a lot to work with, but this is a lot to work with, because
it's a lot to work
what
with.
I heard you say is money is just the means to an end of all the things you named.
Yeah.
That's a very powerful why.
And it's energy. So it's, where do I want this to flow? Whether it's my attention and focus, whether it's I'm writing a check, right? It's all, you can think of these different currencies as you named it, but at the end of the day, like even my presence, right? Like it's all energy.
So in the Jewish tradition, there's this thing called idolatry, and it's totally misunderstood. People think it means bowing down to statues.
Yeah.
Actually, what it is making the infinite finite, making the ineffable or the dynamic static.
Yeah.
When you turn something into something static, you've frozen it.
Yeah.
Is that a word, frozen? You froze it in time. And that's idolatry. And that's what I see happens with money.
Yes, money in the bank versus
money in the bank.
Using it, spending it, flowing it, sharing it,
hoarding it, fearing it, right? All that.
I love that.
And that's constriction. And constriction in Kabbalah is, the Hebrew term is Mitzrayim, Egypt. And that's the embodiment of sort of narrowness and slavery.
Yes.
And so I see so much with people in general. Again, I work with men around the slavery and money.
I actually would love to dig into this. So I'm going to bring up the concept of flow, which is the opposite, right, of the idolatry or what we're talking about of freezing. And I also want to bring up the concept of, I guess, masculine, feminine energy, which is the way that I moved through my life when I was younger and when I went through Wall Street. Yes, I'm a woman, but like it was more of a masculine nature of like, we're going to make this happen and we're going to, make more money, and just this very like regimented thing. And the wiser I've become as I've gone through more in life and also uncover that deeper why and learn more about unpacking, what is money? The concept of flow is that much more relevant and important for health, wellness, how I show up, like how I can find the right way to align with if I am writing a check. And that comes into even when I'm writing a $50,000 check into a private company, like I'm tapping things that aren't just quantitative. I'm tapping this, call it quantum alignment, or this idea of flow. Which I think is feminine in nature, not that it needs to be a woman per se, but I think being less rigid and more organic, we need a lot more of that in the world, and especially with related to how we flow energy and money.
It's beautiful. So when Moses asked God, what's your name? God says, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, I will be that I will be, which is flow. You can't, the moment again you make it static, it's no longer flowing. And so you're right. The flow is divinity. It's source, energy. And you can feel when you're around a person who treats their money or anything, but money, as you know better than I do, is just symbolic of everything, of everything material. And how you treat your money is, you can feel when you're around a person who's in a flow relationship with their finances.
Or anything.
Yeah. And so I know I'm sitting in front of somebody right now who's in flow with this stuff.
And I feel like I'm in flow in life. Like I've started playing in music and these other categories of existence that, again, there's something so magical about flow and not defining and saying, let's see, like this is a journey and let's just be present with it.
So let's talk about that for a second, because like people's relationship with money is just so fucked up.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I want it, I don't want it, I'm
Yeah.
sabotaging it. And there's just like back and forth. But, there's such a, so there's the fear of kind of hoarding and holding on and not having enough.
Yeah.
Then there's also the fear of getting too much,
Sure.
owning my worth. Right. I see this a lot.
Yeah.
And you can tell like people's hangups around their money, they manifest in so many different ways. I'd love to
Totally.
dig into that.
So many thoughts.
Yeah.
I'll actually share, it's a fun story. I called my dad yesterday. Money is probably his love language, one of intelligence too. And I shared a story about a private company I invested in, very early stage, and they're now a multiple times unicorn. And I'm still in the investment. Basically, I decided to let it ride or keep the funds invested, even though I had the opportunity for liquidity because some other deals paid me. And it's doing really well. And it was so interesting because on the call, he laughs and he loves talking about wealth. And he's like, oh, well, when you're worth $500 million. And I go, Dad, I said, that's sweet. I go, I'm not trying to be worth $500 million. I said, I love what I do. And it'd be fun if this investment pays me another couple million or a handful of million. And I won't have any taxes, by the way. It's called qualified small business savings. It's amazing. And that just adds to my net worth. But I'm not like trying to maximize and make like a ton of money. And he's like, oh, will you start, giving some away? I'm like, Dad, the way that I operate, I'm already investing and flowing money in such impactful ways. And it was so interesting because, to him, he's kind of taking this idea of big wealth and saying, well, this is where you're headed. I'm like, I'm actually not trying to head there. Now, asking myself, do I not want to make a certain amount of money because that will change me? Maybe, right? But also, I'm not scared of money. I just bought a Porsche. That was my first Porsche.
Nice.
And to step into things that serve us, but that don't run us. I got rid of my Tesla. I got rid of BMW. I'm like, I don't need a car that drives me. No shade to all the people that loves their Teslas, but it felt like a political statement. And for me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get the Porsche and I have to drive it. I have the agency with respect to this car, and it's a nice car. But just realizing we can step into like, what do we want to be? What do we want to make? How do we want to flow it? Right now, I'm cash flow negative, which would scare the shit out of a lot of people. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast.
Go for it.
But I'm in a place where I feel really good about where I am. And that's like my portfolio, my net worth, how I'm flowing things, and even being cash flow negative, but knowing my portfolio also flows back to me as companies exit. I'm excited about it. And listen, if I ever needed income, like I could step back into it. But I don't know, it's a really interesting place to be. And there's a lot of mindset work that went into that. Other than, just sitting there being like, oh my gosh, like this is how much I'm spending on my 1.33 mortgages. I also have a spot in the mountains that I got with some girlfriends, but it's like, I don't worry about it because that's not where I am. I think about what I'm doing and how I'm showing up.
There's such it just feels dynamic to me, like back to our concept of just the flow and the energy of it all versus, and I'm not in that place. I'm learning from you as we go. This is not my area of sort of mastery. I'm much more of kind of like hold on tight. And it's been a process of learning how to play the surrender experiment.
Sure.
Right. And open up to what you're talking about. And some people listening to this will go, well, that's easy. She's got money. But I also know that that's why you have money is because,
it's
which
both.
comes first.
It's both.
Which comes first. And so, what do you say to somebody who's like your dad? Well, I mean, you did say something to him.
There's a lot of people, and I'll speak to Boulder for a second. A lot of people that I'm in community with, and they don't have wealth and they don't have assets and they're not making money. And I've heard comments where they're like, well, if I'm near you, like money will start flowing to me. I'm like, that's not quite how money works. Energy, sure. Maybe if I allow energy to flow. Other people where they're like, well, like you just need to spend money and then you'll make money. I'm like, it's not quite how it works either. Pray to the money tree. And so I live in multiple realities and multiple worlds. I live in the physical world where I know there's risk return, there's smart decisions, there's building a diversified portfolio, there's making money and not just letting it like sieve through. It's like, what are you doing with it? And then I live in a world where you're not just holding onto something tightly, but you are allowing it to flow. And yes, it's easier to kind of loosen the grip or find new realities when you aren't at the bottom of Maslow's pyramid, like trying to put food on the table. But I've seen people that are building wealth for the very first time that are stepping into more conscious money flows, and it shifts the dynamics. It shifts the way they show up. And yes, money can also flow to you more freely if you're not like scared of entering into that.
Totally.
And if you don't, spend in a dumb way, right? Like even for me, and this is probably part of how I was raised, and maybe it's a bit of Judaism in there, but like I'm still value oriented, even though I have money.
Well, that's an interesting area to dig into. I think one of the reasons why Jews have, how do I say this without, reinforcing stereotypes, but been disproportionately successful when it comes to a modern sort of commerce is because of our relationship with money.
Yeah.
From a Jewish perspective, money is not moral and it's not immoral.
Yeah.
It's amoral. What you do with it determines its morality.
Like wine.
Like wine, right? Kiddush
Yes.
on Friday night or
Right?
paper bag on the corner. And sex and everything.
Yes.
Like Judaism is a value.
That's why I love Judaism, all these things, right?
But it's really well suited for the modern sort
Yes.
of context that we
I
live
agree.
in. And I see a lot less hangups around the morality of money in the Jewish community.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. And the other thing is, and this was legacy, right? Like we were forced into like banking and financial functions because other religions couldn't do that. And we wouldn't do that. And so we were forced into it. So of course it makes sense. We were like, we learned how to play with numbers and, like what is money and how to transact and everything. And I think this, these stories in our lineage, like they're a part of our story. We're born into this world, and we can get spiritual for a second. Like there's stuff in our cells that happened generations before that is still a part of our story.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, you take the principle of tzedakah, which is giving, it's oftentimes charity, but it's really justice. But giving money is a sort of a restorative type of a justice.
Sure.
And even if you're poor in the Jewish tradition, you still have to give for this very reason. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter where you are on the pyramid. Yeah. It's creating a mindset around money. And so whether you have $1 or $1 million, a percentage of it needs to be given to release the grip.
Yes. And I love that. And I'll bring up an actual story that happened here in Boulder when a woman was like, I'm going to host a money party and everybody come give me money, and basically like a pyramid scheme, and thinking that would unlock people's magic around money. So discernment or understanding context, what you just said, yes. But if somebody's like, hey, like let's pyramid scheme this and just like everybody gives somebody a bunch of money and that's going to like all of a sudden change your reality, I don't think so. So it's understanding what stories, what bylines, how you want to live. Mm-hmm. And I think fundamentally being around maybe some people that do have knowledge around here's conscious capital, here's the basics of understanding your financial position. And by the way, I also will say, I don't think that we work through, a trauma or something that we really don't understand necessarily in this lifetime. I think it's ongoing work, just like suicide loss. Mm-hmm. It's ongoing. And so if somebody's like really bad with money, they might get better with it, but that's ongoing work. I want to name that.
Love it. Yeah. So coming back to this idea of means and not an end, right? Like, let's talk about that a little more. So tell us more about your business. Like, what is the means? What is the process that you go through with these companies and making sort of the discernment of who to invest in and who not to invest in?
Yeah, gosh, it's a fun one. So I have an institutional or professional, finance and investment background from both Wall Street and private equity, and also angel investing now for a couple of decades. And the process of evaluating an early stage business, which is what we invest in as private investors, a lot goes into it, a lot. Assume that if you step into this asset class, angel investing, and you don't do it with other people and you're just writing checks yourself, like it's a lot of write-offs. There's so much to learn. But I'd say probably the biggest thing that in private investors and angel investors are looking for early stage is really, and you're going to love this, founder, executive team, CEO, what's their why? I mean, that's one of the pivotal things. Early stage, it's so much work. It's so hard. Expect pivots, it's like brutal. And so the character, the people behind the business, like, yes, the business matters, but the people behind it, that's really ultimately what we're investing in. And you can assume, right? Like things are going to fall apart. Like every assumption out the window. Who are the people? And that's how I also think about businesses too. What is the energy behind? What are the people behind the business? And I'm not going to invest in somebody that I love if they're like making some widget or gadget that I don't see some meaningful, reason for it to be launched or in the world. It's not like only quote unquote has to be impact investing per se. We are, however, as a group, because we're deeply, we have lived experience predominantly as women in a world where we've underinvested in things like women's health and, some of these categories where we just have been overlooked as a gender. So we love some of these categories, but we are generalists. We'll invest in anything, but we're really looking for good risk reward, amazing humans, right? And then what do we want to see in the world? And there's a lot more that goes into the diligence, but I am a firm believer you can find good risk reward and great humans. You don't need to trade off and say, oh, this is a good business and I don't like the people or the product. Like, I don't think you need to do that. We are firmly investing in this category where it's like, we're into the team, we're into the culture, and we love what they're doing and we're seeing good execution.
Oh, it's so inspiring to hear. It doesn't have to be either or.
Yeah.
And I was involved with some impact investing and I was a founder of a cannabis company while I was still a rabbi. That went over real well. And we wanted to do good while doing well. And it was so hard and so complicated. And, just to make that work, right? The impact investing side while, growing a business responsibly and consciously. And I'm glad there's people out there like you who are able to navigate that space.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Is most of your investing here in a local area?
So we've invested predominantly in the US. I have a few allocations in Israel. We actually invested in a group as an Israeli company. A lot of times companies outside the US will still have like a focus on go-to-market in the US, given the market here, the size. But we look at businesses all over. We've done a good amount of Colorado-based investing, just the nature of deal flow. Deal flow is a big deal, sure. Right? Like, what are you seeing? So we ran a pitch day last week. We do them quarterly, and we do a lot of work to make sure it's quality, fundable businesses that pitch us. We had 6 companies pitch us, and then 2 actually that we're also assessing alongside that. And of that, like 4 are Colorado-based, which is pretty incredible. But we look at all categories. Yeah.
Amazing. And so most of the companies are founded by women?
So I would say more than half of what we've invested in is founded by women, but we've also invested in men. I'll give you an example. Aztec Diagnostics, brilliant man by the name of Mustafa, who started that. It's a UTI diagnostics platform raised by a single mother. He's amazing, right? And the UTI diagnostics market, you can imagine, impacts a lot more women as well from just the fact that more women get UTIs. But it's an incredible product platform. It's about UTI diagnostics and patient sensitivity to antibiotics. And then there's other use cases as well, but that's where they're starting. But yeah, we invest in, other businesses. They don't have to just be women owned. I think if we don't see women in positions of, leadership or women on the cap table or in good positions of ownership, we'll have a conversation. And so one business we invested in, basically they talked about, hey, like we want more representation. We want more women in these roles. And when we invested, it was like all white men, nothing wrong with white men. We knew this was an amazing team. And now there's like amazing representation. There's amazing, brilliance in terms of diversity. So you're able to not check the boxes. You're able to basically go below what they're saying to really de-risk on or understand like, what are they doing, right? Because a lot of people, they might say one thing. You can really dig in, right? You can get to know someone's character. And yeah, that's what we do when we invest.
It's such a healthier or, I don't know, more effective way, certainly, to make change. We've gone through this period where cis white men, bad, part of the problem, as opposed to what I just heard you say was, these are good men.
Yeah.
And we want to help inspire them to be more diverse and more inclusive. And that's how you get the best out of people.
Totally.
Right? As opposed to you're bad, you're good.
Yeah.
And we start creating this, us versus them mentality.
100%. I will say, if it's a cis white man, as an example, who like thinks he can accomplish the world and has like a big ego, hasn't been through anything tough, like that's probably going to be a tough one for me.
But he's just a dick.
I know. Correct.
Right.
And so recognizing it's nuance, right? Everything's nuance. And it's nothing about like skin color at the end of the day, or like, it's really life experience. Again, what's your why? And so I will say, and as a woman, maybe I'll share this, my lived experience, I often find that like the average woman maybe has dealt more like pushback in her life, being a woman in a patriarchy. Like if we're just going to bring up the woman thing for a second, that doesn't mean, by the way, that she's going to build a better business. Maybe she's more resilient on some level or knows herself better, but there's a lot of things we look for in terms of building a business.
Totally. And, I see the work that you're doing is restorative, but it's in a healthy way. Again, I can feel it. It's coming from a place of love, intentionality, inclusivity, right? And so many men that I know have felt marginalized over the past 5 years, as opposed to like, let's lift the whole process.
And I think it's a big deal that we have men in the group who are amazing. And we weren't like, this has to be women.
Yeah.
Because I think that nature of not excluding and also investing in men changes the dynamic and also allows us to allocate to things that we want to invest in, right? But I think it's a really good example of, if you're a group and you're like, well, no one else can come in and we're going to have these conversations just ourselves, I don't think you can get as big. I don't think the impact's going to be as big. And by the way, the learned perspectives or learning alongside others' journeys, I mean, that's a big deal.
It feels that way. It feels, I've never really talked to anybody in finance who's coming from such a spiritual perspective. We haven't really talked, we touched on spirituality, but talk to me about your spirituality. You've talked a little bit about the cosmology. You've talked a little bit about flow, but I don't know, what else would you say to that?
I mean, all right, I'm going to feel into it. Like my mom and my cousin are probably in this room right now, like on some level, right? Through loss, I think loss and grief and suicide loss, right? Like there's such deep things that cut us so deeply. The ability to transform or, I don't know, alchemize and wake up in different ways, it's so real. And my relationship with spirit, my relationship with self, I mean, I just move differently through the world. And whether it's feeling into something on the other side or recognizing like energy is, I don't know, infinite and we can touch all this stuff around us, or how do I meet myself? I mean, I've also had near-death experiences. One of them was in the Engedi, falling down, on a 12-hour hike in Israel. The other year I had a debilitating, really bad ski injury. My 17-year-old cousin, who, when we lost him, he wanted to ski with me. I started ski jumping at 39 because like, who doesn't want to start doing it? And I was going hard. And the first fall in Steamboat, I was okay. The second really bad fall in Vail took me out, and I had multiple surgeries, like basically couldn't walk for months. And I think just the more time we spend with ourselves and call it in silence or going through tough things, like if you get through that and if you grow through that, I don't know how you wouldn't develop spirituality, because again, when you're in silence or stillness or with yourself, like there's something so, I don't know, beautiful and so just like energetic to be with. You can touch this infinite. And like somatic work for me was a big one, just unlocking this stuff in my body. And I really think that I've unlocked something where I can feel oppression and things that have happened in my family and to women before me, like through how much I know myself.
Do you feel like the work that you're doing is healing that generationally? It's
a great question. I think that the investing work I'm doing is incredible. And it's, I think, transformative and doing this brilliant work in the physical world. Let's call it the physical reality. And I think what's probably even more powerful is the fact that I show up fully as a woman, unmasked, on stages. We're talking kids, elderly folks, like all ages, and that they see that I'm not up there just talking about money, but I talk about mental health. I talk about lived experience. I talk about authenticity. I talk about being full. I talk about freestyle rap because I enjoy that. And are people taking time off because, look at what's happening with mental illness globally. When I talk about AI build, I love AI build. I'm like, you have to be a human. You have to be creative. You have to ground. Like, to me, my investing work feels like this great thing in the physical world. And I'm just going to maybe blow your mind for a second here. In terms of like spirituality and how I show up and probably how I'm impacting people more deeply with my work, it might be around like, can I say my orgasmic energy? I know that's a lot, but this concept of like modeling, being vulnerable, inviting or inspiring others to step into voice or more like acceptance or celebration of sexuality. The women that have told me how brilliant and how life-changing it's been for them to open on some of these things. And they've told me that my energy is like healing for them and that they can breathe for the first time. I mean, it's incredible. So that almost feels like a deeper transformation that I'm uncovering when I'm in community with folks and share some of that. But I think both of these are very liberating, like just different pieces. Yeah.
I think we're going to call this episode Orgasmic Finance. So,
okay. Oh my gosh.
But I think one of the things that you're really opening up within me is the expansiveness, right? Because when I talk to guys, usually in finance, I have a couple conversations. I teach the Enneagram. Are you familiar with the Enneagram? Yeah. And I created a system called True Wealth with a financial planner using the Enneagram to really understand 9 different energies. But it's always limited to finance. Like it doesn't go beyond, it's like we're coloring inside the lines.
Yeah.
And what you have helped me do is actually understand there's a teaching in the Mishnah that says, Mi ashir hu samech bechalko, who is wealthy? Those who rejoice in what they have, right? And it's like expanding the idea of wealth.
Yes.
Right. It's not just money; it's wealth,
it's and presence,
and celebrating it, and the orgasm of it all. And but it is rare. In fact, I think this is the first that I've ever had a conversation that is so expansive and around finance as a jumping off point.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, like, let's bring up orgasm and money again for a second because I think it's interesting. And now since you renamed, you titled the thing. But like orgasm, if you're just going for orgasm and you're just going for like maximum and as many as you can, like that's not healthy. And that'll destroy you. Same with money. It's like, what is the flow, right? Like where are you at capacity wise? What's the intention? And so, I mean, everything's a metaphor, right? If we're getting spiritual, but it's really interesting stuff. And the other thing is, what is intention or what is agency, discernment, if you don't know yourself, if you don't know your values, if you don't know your why. And so there's a lot of unpacking on all of it. To both find out how would you move mindfully and what does mindfully look like for you, right?
And money is, again, a means to all these conversations, to all these opportunities. It's an invitation if we're not holding on to it, if we're going, coming full circle with the flow of it all. The word in orgasm in Hebrew, orgasm, I think, is hidden light. And I think
I love that.
Yeah, the hidden light in the orgasm, if it's more than just material, physiological. Yeah. And the same is true with money.
Yeah.
Right? There's a hidden light in it if we can get past just the surface level.
It's an energy we can harness and alchemize, right? All of it. Orgasm energy, money energy.
and orgasm can be the most destructive thing in the universe, like a rape. So one person's orgasming. And it can also be the most uniting thing, 2 lovers coming together to celebrate. And I just think of money as the same thing. It can destroy.
But I still think, like, even 2 lovers coming together, if it's an intentional, let's say, container where expansion or mindfully sharing energy is the intention behind it, like that's a totally different situation. I don't know if you know about Tantra, like that's totally different, I feel like, than 2 lovers coming together just for sex.
Yeah, and I would argue that that's not lovers. That's
sure.
Sexers. But yes, we're saying the same thing.
Right.
It's intention.
Yeah.
It's the means to what end.
Yeah.
And the end is tantra, expansion.
Yeah.
Right. And money, expansion. Are we expanding consciousness or are we constricting?
And again, you can't always be in a state of expansion, even with, like, let's talk about plants for a second, plant medicine. It's expansion, contraction, right? Like it's finding this balance. And that's where I am in life, right? Like I feel great with presence and where I'm at and these things. And it's like I expand and then I need to contract. And it's like finding this good balance while continuing to expand, but I can't just expand.
Aho.
Yes.
Amazing. We've hit on plant medicine, which we don't have time to dig into. We've hit on the orgasm. We've hit on all kinds of flow and spirituality and finance and investing. And this is just the beginning, I know, of more conversations. You've really opened my eyes, more importantly, my mind and my heart to what, I don't know, at the surface, I thought was just going to be a conversation about finance. I'm sure you've heard this before, though.
Well, this was a pleasure. I really enjoyed everything we chatted about.
And you'll be on Ariella's show, and you guys will definitely take it in a whole new direction.
I can't wait.
You guys are going to love each other, and it's just a pleasure to be in studio and now in community with you. So thanks, Natalie.
Thank you so much.
How can people get a hold of you?
You can follow me, I guess, LinkedIn, Instagram, at nattygraham_and_B. That's a tough one. My dog B, who's infinite love. Just have to drop her name in here. And then, yeah, Cash is Queen, A Conscious Journey in Angel Investing covers a lot of these topics and just kind of fundamentals of both finances and conscious money flow, how we invest in angel. I talk about actual portfolio wins and losses and red flags, all of that. So feel free to check it out.
I'm definitely going to check it out.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.